The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with light, sound, and tension. Leaders of dozens of alien civilizations sat in their tall seats, their eyes fixed on the group standing in the center. That group was humanity. The humans were chained by words, not by metal. They were accused of crimes, of wars, of cruelty that many in the chamber believed without question. For centuries, whispers had called them dangerous, unstable, too wild to share the stars. Now the council had decided it was time to make that fear official. A tall alien, covered in silver scales, raised his voice so that it echoed across the hall. Humanity is a threat. They fight without limit. They burn worlds. They cannot be trusted among peaceful races. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Some council members nodded. Others banged their claws or tails against the floor. Only a few looked uneasy. At the center, the human representative, Commander Elias Kane, stood still. His uniform was old, his face scarred by battles, but his eyes were sharp. He spoke calmly, but his voice carried through the chamber. "You call us monsters," he said, "but who fought beside you when the plagues came? Who gave food when your colonies starved? Who stood on the front lines when raiders attacked your worlds? It was us, humanity. And yet today you erase it all with lies." Some aliens looked away in shame. Others hissed in anger. The High Speaker of the Council rose from his throne. His face was hidden behind a golden mask, his voice cold and final. "History remembers your wars, Commander, not your mercy. We have made our decision. Humanity is guilty. Humanity is unfit. You will be exiled." The word struck like thunder. Exiled. Cast out of the Council. Stripped of rights, stripped of recognition, sent into the uncharted void. Gasps filled the chamber. Some aliens were satisfied. Others whispered in shock. And the humans stood in silence, betrayed by those they had once called allies. Commander Kane's fists tightened. He looked around at the faces staring down at him, and for a moment he saw only fear in their eyes, fear of his people, fear of what humanity might become. Slowly he spoke again. "You think by exiling us you will be safe, but you are wrong. You are afraid not of what we are, but of what we can be. You fear our strength, our will, our refusal to bow." The council guards stepped forward, but Kane did not fight. He only raised his voice one last time, so that every word was burned into memory. "You send us into the void. Remember this. Humanity does not die in darkness. We endure, we adapt. And one day when the stars call us back, the galaxy will see us again." The chamber shook with anger and fear. Some shouted to silence him. Others trembled at his words. But it was too late. The sentence was final. Humanity was exiled. Their fleets were dismantled. Their colonies stripped of wealth. Thousands of human ships, filled with families and supplies, were escorted to the edge of known space. There, the Council's fleets turned their backs and left, abandoning humanity to the endless black void. At first, despair filled the humans. They were cast into cold, empty regions where no star shone bright, where planets were harsh and resources scarce. Many thought they would not survive, but slowly the spirit of humanity rose. On broken worlds, they built shelters from nothing. In empty space, they forged new ships out of wreckage. They learned to grow food in barren soil, to mine riches from asteroids, to endure storms that would kill other races. Children grew into strong men and women who knew only struggle, but also unity. They were not divided by council politics anymore. They were one people, bound by exile and survival. And deep in their hearts they carried the memory of betrayal. They remembered the council's lies. They remembered the fear in alien eyes. They remembered the words of Commander Kane, "We will return." Generations passed, but the fire did not fade. Humanity was no longer weak, no longer dependent. Exile had forged them into something new, harder, stronger, unbreakable. And while the galaxy forgot them, they did not forget the galaxy. Far away, in the endless dark, their ships grew larger, their weapons sharper, their unity stronger. They were no longer the desperate outcasts. They were becoming a force that even the stars would tremble to see again. The Galactic Council believed they had destroyed humanity by casting them into exile. Instead, they had given humanity the greatest gift of all: time. Time to grow. Time to prepare. Time to return. And when they returned, the galaxy would remember them not as monsters, not as exiles, but as something far more powerful. The exile began with silence. When the fleets of the Galactic Council abandoned humanity at the edge of known space, only the black void remained. Stars were distant and faint, planets cold and hostile, and no allies came to help. The Council believed that humans would fade away, broken and forgotten. For a while it almost seemed true. The first years were the hardest. Food was scarce. Ships that once belonged to a proud fleet now drifted like broken bones. Entire families huddled in the dark, surviving on scraps and fear. Many whispered that the Council had not only exiled them, but had also given them a death sentence. But humanity did not die. Commander Elias Kane, now older and weary, spoke to the scattered colonies. His message was carried ship to ship, planet to planet. His voice was calm but filled with fire. We were cast out. We were betrayed. But we are still here. The void will not kill us. We will live. We will endure. And one day the stars will be ours again. Those words became more than hope. They became a promise. On a frozen world they named Ashenfall, humans built their first colony from wreckage and stone. The planet had no warmth. Its storms howled with deadly winds, but the people learned to survive. They dug deep into mountains, lit furnaces from what little fuel they had, and grew food in underground caves. The planet was cruel, but humanity was crueler when it came to survival. Children were born into this hard life. They never knew the Council, never knew the shining cities of other species. To them, the exile was history and the void was home. They grew strong because weakness meant death. They learned to fight storms, to hunt in frozen wastes, to repair broken machines with their own hands. In the void itself, others became wanderers. Some lived on massive starships that traveled between dead worlds and asteroid belts. They mined rare metals, built new engines, and forged weapons unlike any the Council had seen. They learned to travel deep into uncharted space where no alien dared to go. Years turned into decades, decades into centuries, and humanity changed. The soft edges of the past were burned away. They became harder, sharper, more united. While the Council lived in comfort and politics, humans learned to trust only in themselves. Their colonies were small but unbreakable. Their ships were few but powerful. Their children carried in their blood both the memory of betrayal and the hunger to rise again. Rumors began to spread in hidden corners of the galaxy. Smugglers whispered about shadow fleets that appeared in the void. Alien traders spoke of human miners who could survive on planets no other species could touch. Some even claimed to have seen ships with human markings, ships that moved faster, struck harder, and vanished without a trace. But no proof ever reached the Council. To them, humanity was still gone, forgotten, buried in the dark. Yet among the exiled, a saying was passed down through generations. The void does not break us. The void makes us. This became their creed, their strength. On Ashenfall, monuments were built from black stone, carved with the names of those who died in the early years. On the largest of them, Kane's final words were written, "We will return." For while humanity learned to survive, they also learned to prepare. Their scientists rebuilt knowledge lost in exile. Their engineers forged starships with new designs, made to endure the storms of the void. Their warriors trained with weapons that could pierce even the hardest armor. And their leaders taught every child the truth, that the Council betrayed them, that the galaxy feared them, and that one day the galaxy would see them again. Still, life in the void was not without cost. Many perished in the endless struggle. Entire colonies vanished in storms or starvation. Every human carried scars, both on their bodies and in their hearts. But the pain only made them stronger. Generations passed, but the fire never went out. A new leader rose, born not in the Council's age of betrayal, but in the exile itself. Her name was Admiral Saren Vale, a woman who grew up among the wandering fleets. She had seen the worst of the void and had conquered it. Under her command, human fleets began to unite once more, gathering strength not to hide but to prepare for something greater. The void had not broken humanity. It had forged them into something far more dangerous, something far more powerful. And while the galaxy lived in peace, believing the exiles were long gone, the humans waited for the day when their ships would cross back into known space, waited for the moment when the galaxy that cast them out would look up and see human banners in the stars again. The exile was not their end. It was their beginning, and soon the galaxy would remember what it had tried to forget. Centuries had passed since humanity's exile. For the Galactic Council, humans had become nothing more than a story, a warning told to young alien children. Obey the laws or you will become like the humans. Lost in the void, most believed humanity was gone forever. Some claimed the exiles had perished in the black storms of space. Others said they had turned into savages, fighting among themselves until nothing remained. Few dared to wonder if humanity had survived at all, but then the whispers began. It started with smugglers at the edge of the galaxy. A trade ship returned damaged, its crew shaken. They spoke of strange vessels, fast, silent, deadly, that had appeared without warning, stripped them of cargo and vanished into the dark. These were no pirates, one crewman swore. Their discipline was military. Their ships moved like shadows, and they carried a banner I had never seen, but it looked human. The council dismissed the claims. They said smugglers told lies to cover their failures, but the whispers did not stop. More reports arrived. A mining world near the rim claimed that raiders had been destroyed by an unknown fleet. Wreckage showed weapons not seen before. Weapons too advanced, too precise to belong to ordinary pirates. A single mark was found burned into the hull of a ruined raider ship. A human hand carved in steel. Fear spread quietly. Old council members remembered the words of Commander Kane, "We will return." Still, most of the galaxy laughed at the idea. Humanity was a dead race, they said. A myth, a shadow, nothing more. But far away, beyond the rim, the truth lived. In the void, human fleets had grown vast and silent. Their colonies were no longer desperate outposts, but strongholds of steel and fire. Their ships bore sleek designs, faster and deadlier than anything the Council had ever imagined. Entire generations had trained only for survival, and survival had made them warriors. Now, under Admiral Seren Vale, the time of waiting was ending. Humanity was stirring. The first true sign came when an alien patrol ship vanished near the border of known space. Days later, its wreckage drifted back into Council territory. Carved into the hull, burned deep by plasma fire, were 3 words in human script. "We are here." Panic spread through the alien ranks. Some races demanded war. Others begged for diplomacy. But the Council was divided. After all, they had exiled humanity. If the humans had returned, what would they want? Revenge or peace? The answer came with fire. A powerful enemy, long hidden in the dark, struck at the outer colonies of the Council. They were known as the Varkal, a brutal species that fed on destruction. Their fleets swept across the stars, burning settlements, enslaving civilians, and leaving nothing behind but ashes. World after world fell. The Council panicked, unprepared for such a sudden war, and then, in the middle of the chaos, salvation arrived from the shadows. A Varkal fleet surrounded the colony world of Draxis, preparing to slaughter its people. Alien civilians screamed for help, but no Council ships came. The Council had abandoned them. Just as the enemy prepared to strike, strange signals filled the skies. Hundreds of ships appeared, their hulls black and silver, their engines glowing blue like fire. They descended with perfect precision, moving like predators in the night. The Varkal laughed at first, believing these were more prey. But when the battle began, the laughter died. The mysterious fleet tore through them with terrifying speed. Weapons burned brighter, shields held stronger, and strategy unfolded like a storm. Within hours, the entire Varkal force was destroyed. When the smoke cleared, the alien survivors on Draxis looked up to see the ships above them. On their banners, shining in the light of the stars, was a symbol that had not been seen for centuries. The crest of humanity. The exiles had returned. The Council received the news in silence. Fear ran through the chamber like blood through veins. They had sent humanity into the dark to be forgotten. Now humanity had stepped back into the light, stronger than ever. The whispers were no longer whispers. They were truth, and though the humans had saved Draxis, they spoke no words of peace, no demands, no explanations. Their fleet simply vanished back into the void, leaving only a single message for the galaxy to remember. Exiled, forgotten, but not broken. The galaxy trembled. The Varkal were a nightmare, but the return of humanity was something far more terrifying, because if the exiles could destroy the enemy with such power, what would they do to the Council that had betrayed them? The galaxy held its breath. For centuries, the name of humanity had been nothing more than a fading echo. Now, after the Battle of Draxis, that echo had become thunder. The exiles had returned, and they had returned strong. But one question burned in every council chamber, every alien home, every fearful whisper in the dark. Had humanity returned as saviors? Or as conquerors? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. The Varkal, the ruthless invaders, who had already destroyed entire colonies, launched another massive assault. This time their target was the council world of Revan, a planet known for its trade and wealth. Millions of civilians were trapped, and the council's fleets were too far away to respond in time. The skies above Revon darkened with enemy ships. Varkal war engines descended like blades, their weapons glowing with death. Cities prepared for the end. Families huddled in silence, waiting for fire to fall from the skies, and then the stars lit up. From the black of space a fleet emerged. Hundreds of ships, sleek and deadly, their engines burning like blue suns. They moved with perfect formation, their hulls reflecting light like blades of steel. The exiles had come again. Humanity had chosen to strike. The first clash began in a storm of fire. Human warships cut through the Varkal with ruthless precision. Their weapons tore apart enemy armor. Their fighters darted like hawks, their tactics flawless. Where the council fleets were slow and clumsy, the humans were sharp and merciless. For the people of Revan watching from the ground, it was like witnessing a legend come alive. They had been told humans were monsters, that they were dangerous, untrustworthy. Yet now those same humans were saving their lives. Alien children pressed against windows as human ships painted the skies with light. Old men whispered in disbelief. Mothers cried as the fire that was meant to kill them was turned against their enemies. The battle raged for hours. The Varkal fought with savagery, but for every ship they destroyed, 2 more human ships answered. Slowly the invaders broke. Their fleets scattered, fleeing into the black void they once ruled. The colony was saved. When the last enemy ship was destroyed, silence fell over Revan. Every eye turned upward, waiting for what would come next. Would humanity now strike the planet? Would they enslave it, as the Council always warned? But no attack came. Instead, a single transmission was sent from the human flagship. It was short, clear, and cold. To the people of Revan, you are safe. To the Galactic Council, we have not forgotten. We were exiled. We endured. And we have returned. Then, without another word, the human fleet vanished into the stars, leaving the aliens in stunned silence. The Council was thrown into chaos. Some shouted for war, demanding humanity be crushed before they grew even stronger. Others argued that without the exiles, the Varkal would have destroyed Revan, Draxus, and countless other worlds. The galaxy had seen the truth with its own eyes. Humanity was not gone. They were warriors forged in the hardest fire, and they were more powerful than ever. But one fact scared the Council most of all. The humans had not attacked the Council, though they had every chance. They had not demanded tribute. They had not enslaved the worlds they saved. No, they had fought the common enemy. They had saved lives. And that made them even more dangerous. Because if the galaxy began to see humanity not as monsters, but as heroes, then the lies of the Council would collapse. Meanwhile, in the void, Admiral Saren Vale watched from her command throne. Her fleet had struck perfectly, just as planned. But she knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy remembers us as outcasts, she told her officers. Now they will remember us as something greater. We did not return for vengeance alone. We returned because the stars are ours too. Her words carried through the fleet, echoing in the hearts of every human soldier. They were not fighting only to survive anymore. They were fighting to reclaim their place in the galaxy. But deep inside, every officer, every soldier, every child of exile still remembered the betrayal, still carried the scars of being cast out, still burned with anger at the Council that had abandoned them. And though they had saved Revan, their message was clear. Humanity would fight the enemies of the galaxy. But they would never forgive the betrayal of the Council. The first clash had ended. The galaxy was safe for now, but the storm was only beginning, because the exiles had returned, and they carried both hope and fear in their hands, and soon the Council would have to face the truth. The humans they had once feared were no longer the same. They were stronger, faster, harder. They were the children of the void, and the galaxy's first clash with them was only a shadow of what was to come. The Galactic Council chamber was no longer filled with confidence. Where once there had been arrogance and certainty, now there was fear. The whispers of humanity had turned into open truth, and every council member knew it. The exiles had returned, and they had returned stronger than anyone could have imagined. The council argued for hours, voices rising in anger and desperation. Some leaders shouted for war. We must destroy them now before they grow even stronger. Humanity is a plague. Exile was not enough. Others shook their heads, trembling. Destroy them. You saw what they did to the Varkal. Without the exiles, Revan and Draxus would be ashes. If we fight them, we will lose. We need them. The chamber split into chaos. Some wanted vengeance, some wanted peace. But no one could deny the truth. Humanity had shattered the balance of power. At last the High Speaker rose, his golden mask gleaming under the council lights. His voice was calm, but every word carried fear. The humans have shown themselves. They saved our worlds, but their message was clear. They remember their exile. They have not forgiven us. The question before us is simple. Do we treat them as enemies or as equals? The word equals spread like fire through the chamber. For centuries, the council had called humanity dangerous, unworthy, wild. To accept them now as equals would mean admitting the council had been wrong, and that, for many, was too much to bear. Meanwhile, far from the council, humanity's fleets gathered in the void. Admiral Seren Vale stood at the heart of her command ship, the Iron Star, her officers waiting for her command. Reports came in from across the border. More Varkal fleets were moving. More colonies were under threat. And the council still hesitated. They will not trust us, said one officer bitterly. Even after we save their people, they still see us as monsters. Seren's gaze was cold but steady. Let them fear us. Fear is honest. Trust can come later. For now, we fight the real enemy. We show the galaxy what we have become. Her words were met with nods. Humanity had no illusions. The council might never forgive them. But humanity had not returned to beg for forgiveness. They had returned to take their place in the stars. Back in the council chamber, desperation grew. A messenger ran in, breathless. Another world has fallen to the Varkal. Millions dead. The chamber fell silent. The war was growing, and the council's fleets were too weak to stop it. Every alien leader knew the truth. Only the humans had the strength to stand against the invaders. And then the chamber doors opened. Every voice died. Every eye turned. For the first time in centuries, humans stood once more in the council hall. A delegation of exiles armored in steel, their faces hard and unyielding. At their head was Admiral Seren Vale. She walked with calm steps, her eyes fixed on the council throne. The silence was suffocating. The High Speaker rose. His voice, usually firm, trembled as he spoke. You should not be here. This chamber, Seren interrupted, her voice cutting through like a blade, once cast us into the void. You called us dangerous. You called us unfit. You thought we would die. But look at us now. We survived. We endured. And we have returned. The words echoed through the hall, heavy with power. The council members shifted uneasily. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others glared with anger. But none could deny the strength in her voice. Seren continued. We did not come here to ask for your approval. We did not come to kneel. We came to tell you this. Humanity will fight the Varkal. We will fight because this galaxy is our home as much as yours. But do not mistake us for servants. We are not your soldiers. We are not your slaves. We are equals or we are nothing. Gasps rippled through the chamber. To speak such words was unthinkable. Yet Seren did not falter. One alien leader slammed his claw on the table. Equals? You dare to demand equality after the chaos you brought to the stars? Seren's eyes narrowed. Chaos? The only chaos was your fear. You feared us because we were strong. You feared us because we would not bow. And so you exiled us. But that fear forged us into what we are today, and now. You need us more than ever. The chamber fell into silence again. Because the truth of her words was undeniable. Without humanity, the Varkal would consume them all. At last, the High Speaker lowered his head. His golden mask glinted under the light, but his voice was hollow. If humanity fights for the galaxy, then perhaps they have earned their place. Murmurs spread, uncertain but growing. For the first time in history, the council spoke not of humanity as monsters or outcasts, but as warriors, as saviors, as equals. But even as the chamber struggled with this new reality, Saren's final words left a shadow hanging over them all. "We will fight beside you," she said. "But never forget, we remember the exile. We remember your betrayal. And humanity does not forgive easily." Her words cut deeper than any blade. The reckoning had begun. The war reached its peak. The Varkal were no longer just raiders at the edges of the galaxy. Their fleets now burned across entire sectors, destroying colonies and crushing worlds beneath their ruthless advance. Planets fell one after another. Even the strongest council fleets were shattered like glass against their endless waves. It seemed as if the galaxy itself was dying. But then, humanity moved. For centuries, the exiles had lived in silence, building, waiting, preparing. Now their full strength was revealed. Fleet after fleet emerged from the void, their black and silver hulls blazing with blue fire. Entire armadas rose from hidden strongholds, led by the banners of a people once thought lost. For the first time in history, alien races looked not to the Council for salvation, but to humanity. The final battle was fought above the world of Erythra, a massive planet rich with life. If it fell, the Varkal would control the heart of the galaxy. Billions of lives hung in the balance. The skies above Erythra were a storm of fire. Thousands of ships clashed, explosions lighting the void like a second sun. The Varkal roared with savagery, their warships tearing into defenses. Alien fleets faltered, breaking under the assault. It seemed as though hope itself was about to die. And then the humans struck. Admiral Saren Vale led from the front, her flagship Iron Star charging into the thick of battle. Human warships moved like hunters in the dark, cutting through the Varkal lines with unmatched precision. Where the Council fleets broke, the human fleets held. Where the enemy advanced, the humans pushed them back. Every ship, every soldier, every exile fought as if the weight of centuries was on their shoulders. They were not just fighting the Varkal. They were fighting for every betrayal, every scar, every moment of exile. On the surface of Erythra, alien civilians looked to the skies in awe. The Council had abandoned them before, but humanity had not. The exiles were here, and they fought with fire that burned brighter than any sun. The battle raged for hours, neither side giving ground. But slowly the tide began to turn. Human ships forged in the harshest void proved stronger. Human tactics born of survival proved sharper. And human will, hardened through centuries of struggle, proved unbreakable. At last the Varkal flagship, a massive beast of steel and flame, was surrounded. Its weapons fired wildly, but humanity's fleets closed in. Admiral Saren's voice rang out across the comms. "Today we end the war. For every world they burned, for every life they stole, for every exile we endured, humanity strikes back." The Iron Star's cannons roared, joined by dozens of ships. The Varkal flagship was torn apart in a storm of fire, its wreckage scattering into the void. And with it, the will of the invaders broke. Their fleets shattered, fleeing into the darkness from which they came. The galaxy was saved. When silence returned, all eyes turned to the humans. For centuries they had been outcasts, feared and hated. Now they stood as the saviors of the galaxy. In the council chamber, leaders from every species gathered once more. But this time it was not with arrogance. It was with humility. The golden mask of the High Speaker no longer gleamed with power. It trembled with shame. The council rose and spoke. Humanity, once exiled, has proven its strength, its endurance, and its honor. The council offers this, not exile, not fear, but equality. From this day forward, humanity shall take its place among us, not as outcasts, but as leaders. The words rippled through the chamber like thunder. For the first time in history, humanity was no longer a warning, no longer a curse. They were a symbol of survival, of defiance, of hope. Admiral Saren Vale stood at the center of the chamber, her eyes steady. She did not smile. She did not bow. She simply spoke with the calm of someone who had carried her people through fire. "We accept your words," she said, "but remember this. We did not return to be ruled. We returned because the stars are ours as much as yours. We returned because exile did not break us. It made us stronger, and if ever the galaxy forgets again, we will remind you." Her words were not a threat. They were a promise. The chamber fell silent, but in that silence, every species felt the same truth. Humanity had risen from the ashes of exile, and nothing could ever cast them down again. And so began a new dawn, a dawn where humans walked not as monsters, not as outcasts, but as equals, where the galaxy no longer feared them alone, but respected the fire that burned in them. They had been exiled. They had been betrayed. They had been forgotten. But when humanity returned, they returned stronger than ever.